Good morning, everyone, and welcome. My name is Judy Savancic. I am a Vision Long Island board member and a partner with the firm of Fercelli, Dean & Tirana, located in Uniondale. I specialize in land use and zoning. We should tell the other side. Real estate, land use, development. Today we have a very exciting workshop for you. It's focusing on transit-oriented development and revitalization of our downtowns. This has really been a standard yearly workshop that we have for Vision Long Island. As a land use attorney and having practiced for the last 25 years in real estate development, I understand and know personally the challenges in getting projects approved, particularly in our downtown areas. Each downtown has its different needs, and identifying those needs and making a project work and fit with those needs is something that each of our developers on this panel today has truly mastered. Today we have 6 renowned and highly regarded developers that will be speaking to you. They all have an excellent track record with regard to getting TOD projects approved. In terms of format, what I want to do is first have everybody introduce themselves briefly, and then we'll have everybody speak for about 5 minutes on each of the projects that they're working on, and then we'll hopefully field some questions from the audience and get an open dialogue going about TOD developments and revitalizations of downtowns. So if I can start, I'll start to my right with an introduction line.
Ryan Porter, CEO of Renaissance Downtown. Sorry. Ryan Porter, co-CEO of Renaissance Downtowns. We are a development company based here on Long Island that focuses on downtown revitalization projects, putting in place large-scale entitlements and public-private partnership work with municipalities.
Anthony Bartone, managing partner at Williger & Bartone Properties. You'll hear enough of my spiel.
Alan Handelman, Vice President, Connor for Realty.
Nick Halstead, Vice President of Development, Mill Creek Residential.
Rob Gito from the Gito Group. We're a family-ran business. We're developers, general construction, brokerage, and property management.
Andrew Zuccaro, Zuccaro Construction and Development.
We'll start with Anthony.
All right, we can take them, right? They got nothing on us. Look at these guys.
Vice President of Development for Deepwater Wind, where he manages the company's planning, origination, and development.
Hour less, and I can make this. Yeah, where? Up here?
Well, the clock's ticking.
Right. There? I thought it was in the bottom. You start though. There you go, you'll figure it out. Oh yeah, we've had enough technical difficulties this morning as it is. Good morning. Good morning. Anthony Bartone. I'm not going to introduce myself again, we had enough of that. I'm going to talk for a couple minutes on some projects that we have. Well, one project we're coming down the pike and one we did. I've been fortunate enough to have to be asked to speak on TOD in the past, and I spoke about our Farmingdale project, which many of you may have heard about. And so I said, when I was asked to speak again, I said, I'm not going to talk about that again. Enough already. You know, get over yourself. But then when I heard my friend Andy Zuccaro was on the panel with me, I said, we have to at least mention it because Andy was part of it. So just real quickly, I'll show you.
Different things. So number one, just
maybe
I'll talk about Long Island. So Long Island.
Okay. So Farmingdale, the success in Farmingdale, I think, was self-evident. And if you track anything in the press, you'll have heard about it. Farmingdale, it's Renaissance, not the point Renaissance, but its Renaissance has been pretty remarkable. And when you see not just from the TOD, but we did the projects around the train station. My friend Andy did a multifamily project on the periphery of the downtown. All in, it was kind of a all-in renaissance for the village, and now you find that retail vacancies are almost zero, retail rents are surging, and you might say, well, why is that important? Who cares about what the retail is making? Well, why it's important is that thanks to the surge in rents, we see the retailers reinvesting in their storefronts. We see them attracting national retailers who also have a more robust tenant improvement allowance budget, which enables them to invest in their storefronts too, and that becomes infectious. And we find that much like blight can become infectious and you get into that vortex going spinning downward, revitalization is also infectious. So Farmingdale is the #1 downtown on Long Island for 4 straight years. This is before and after pictures, go by the train. Some more pictures. I'm not sure people that. Was voted the #1 downtown on Long Island for 4 straight years by Best of Long Island. So when we started the process there in 2006, I like to say it was Matthew, we were somewhat pioneering, right? Matthew, come over. But it's not really so pioneering anymore. TOD has become the rage here on Long Island, and it's no longer, gone are the days where we're reliant on the studies. Now it's statistical facts. You can go there, you can kick the tires, you can feel it. I told you we could take them. See, they're turning on the So we could, and by the way, the guys sitting in the front are always the hecklers, right? So no heckling here. So, now it's no longer a study, and we're relying on studies. Now it's statistical facts that we can put out there, and you can see the successes. And Farmingdale is just one of many communities. This morning you heard about a lot of them: Patchogue and Mineola and Rockville Center. And so why are all the other communities not embracing it? Well, we all know the mantra on Long Island. It takes us a little while to come up the learning curve. But again, what we have now is facts and not studies. So that was just a quick 2-second thing on Farmingdale, because I wasn't going to talk on it, but I had to, Andy, just throw it out there, right? Yeah. But what I want to talk a minute or two about, and I'll be brief, because I think these panels are great to encourage dialogue, not so much monologue. You don't really want to hear from me so much, but I'd like to hear from you and respond to what you folks think or have to say about these projects. But I'll talk for a minute or two about what will be, in my opinion, one of the next driving downtowns, and that's Lynbrook. Now, if you've been tracking our application in the press, which we've gotten a good amount of press on this application, and if any of our media friends are here in the room, I mean, no disrespect, of course, but the media will often try and seek out conflict, and when sometimes there isn't conflict, we brought an application. It was a ambitious application, but it was intentionally ambitious, and I'll show you why. We like to, like my friends at Renaissance, look at the community from a macro sense, not a micro sense. We don't want to look at site-specific applications to go, what are we doing on this site? We try to look at what we can do in the community as a whole. So we brought an application, and again, it was ambitious, where we took their revitalization plan. They have a plan, and everything we're doing is consistent with the plan to the letter. And we said they have a parking field that's less utilized. I don't want to say not utilized or underutilized, because some people get upset if they park there. So it's less utilized than others. And we're going to build a multifamily development there. Now that's immediately adjacent to their downtown, and about a block or two from the train station. But we didn't want to stop there. We said, all right, what could we do? Number one, we're going to be taking some parking, so we want to not just replace it, but we want to bolster their parking, because anybody who's been in Lynbrook knows they need parking. So we said, all right, on their most used lot by the train station, we're going to build them a parking garage. Now our residents aren't going to park there, that's just for the community. Our residents will park under the building. We'll build them a garage. They have their new theater, which has been very successful and it's been much beautiful. But then we said, we don't even want to stop there. What else can we do to make this community and this project better? Because if the community booms, our project will be more successful too. So we said, adjacent to the parking garage, let's do a performing arts center. A nonprofit, local Lynbrook group approached us, and we said, we'll do a performing arts center immediately adjacent to the garage. Now, originally, we proposed to a park there, but we got some pushback on that, so we were listening. We thought, let's pull back on that, and let's do a performing arts center. So we brought an application, again, was ambitious, right? It's a sexy building, but it's big, right? We knew that, we did it intentionally, because we wanted to do as much as we could for the community. Now, if you've been tracking in the press, the application has submitted, we've been asked to revise, which we will. the biggest pushback we got was on the height, so we understand. So we'll be spending the next 60 days meeting with the community, embracing them, seeing what they like, what they don't like, talking to them, listening more than talking, really. And then we're going to craft a new application that we are confident the village will be able to embrace. And the biggest thing we got was the height. So that's easy. If you tell us what you need us to do, we could address that. So stay tuned. Coming down the pipe, probably within 90 days, 120 days, is going to be Cornerstone Light. I like lighthouses. Cornerstone Light, where we'll be dropping the height, lightly dropping the height of the building. I expect that's what we'll hear when we meet with the community and have our open houses and listen to them and do some surveys and take their input and bake it in. I expect we're going to be coming back with an application that'll show a building a little smaller.
A lot of money into power plants.
And originally this was it. This was, just real quick and dirty. The garage was going to be $10 million. We were paying for that ourselves. $10 million? Say that again. Never mind. It was a zero variance application. It was going to create a lot of jobs. It was going to put people right in the downtown. And what's interesting is that most people in this room will know this. Most people spend 40% of their income on discretionary spending. So with the Cornerstone project, that translated to over $10 million in discretionary spending. Now we're not saying they're going to spend all that in the downtown, but we're going to encourage them to spend it in downtown because we're going to put them right next to the downtown. So that's $10 million a year in spending, right? Farmingdale has one vacant storefront, Lindbergh currently has 16. Why? We need to do certain things. We need to do them smartly, intelligently, smart growth. Being heard before. This is just showing, you can't pick up any newspaper or any media source and not hear about the need for this type of development on many fronts. And so that's it. I could speak for a while longer, but I wanted to be brief and not steal the thunder from my colleagues here. But that's my 2-second thing. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. So Renaissance, as I started to explain, we focus on revitalizing communities through public-private partnerships. We've tackled some pretty complicated projects over the last 5 to 7 years. We've been able to get about 20 million square feet of development approved in the New York area. We had probably our most successful project from a development perspective thus far. Unfortunately, it's not on Long Island, it's our New Rochelle project, where we were able to get about 12+ million square feet approved in a partnership with RXR Realty. Currently, there are 2,000 units under construction there right now. New Rochelle's a little bit bigger of a city than some of the places we see here on Long Island, but we've used that same model here on Long Island to achieve 5 million square feet of entitlements in the village of Hempstead. The first phase of our Huntington Station project was about 300,000 square feet of entitlements. We got 3 million square feet approved in the area of Riverside, which is in the town of Southampton. Typically over the last 20-30 years, firms will spend 7+ years in litigation and fights to get 160 or 200 units approved here on Long Island. So we kind of took a different approach towards getting these large-scale entitlements, one in which we really approach the community and municipal partners from the ground up as opposed to from a top-down perspective. We spent years in each one of these communities working with, on the ground, each community member, civic organizations, just regular business owners or community members. We open informational offices that are open 5 days a week, all day, to assist community members. I have community members that come into our offices and ask us, well, where do I get my taxes challenged, or things like that? Where do I go to get help for, mortgage assistance? So they just come into our office and they ask us questions, and we're there to assist them no matter what the question is. And it's building that trust and that rapport with communities that actually allows us to co-create plans where we can get these large-scale entitlements done. And the goal of the company over the last 5 to 7 years has been to do that, so that some of the players behind me and my colleagues behind me can come in and work with us to actually build those buildings that are entitled. We're not going to be able to both entitle communities and help communities revitalize themselves and build every building that's there. So the whole approach was to bring best-in-class developers to come to the table. I'm working with Alan right now. I've talked about working with Nick a bunch, to come in and not have to do that legwork that they're not necessarily always interested in doing, and can come in there and do what they do best, which is take advantage of the approvals that we've worked so hard on with the community and the municipalities. So we're kind of in a phase here at Renaissance where we're looking to get some of these projects and buildings built. We have a couple buildings that are being built in our Huntington project. So one building is complete, the second 66-unit building is under construction right now with about 13,000 square feet of retail space. There's a condo project, affordable housing condos for veterans that's being built there currently right now that we worked on with the municipality. But a lot of the approach is, again, that community-based revitalization approach, whereby you get everybody on board early in the process so that you don't face the challenges later in the process. We implement community benefits agreements, which require folks that take advantage of the new development entitlements to pay fees into a system whereby local community organizations can apply for grant money that helps revitalize the community and does things like community garden work or community art work or educational work. So we push a very comprehensive approach to all these revitalization projects. And one of the things that I think we do that's a little unique is our in-house capabilities from the zoning perspective. So all the zoning codes that we've put in place in these communities are in-house form-based codes that we write ourselves. And form-based zoning is something that I think every municipality in this country should be looking at when they're looking to revitalize their community. Because the past of Euclidean zoning and old zoning codes just doesn't work as well. You need to be flexible with the market today. These gentlemen behind you will tell you that when they're going to get financing from an equity and debt perspective, by the time they get to projects sometimes, the market has completely changed. The consumer base has completely changed. So it's important to build a zoning code that's flexible over time, that addresses the community's needs from a height and a bulk of building form perspective, creates a walkable component, hides parking behind the buildings, does all the things that create good downtowns, walkable downtowns, but doesn't lock into a use on a single piece of property. Because ultimately over time, again, those markets may change, and you need to be prepared for those changes and be resilient to that change in the market. So that's kind of our spiel, and happy to have any questions once we get to that period. Thank you.
Leave that other screen up there.
So the work from its new standard.
I'll put it there. All right.
We were just 2 years ago about 59,000 about 7% of our customers had service that we would describe as unacceptably poor. In the last 2 years, with PSCP Lion, we are prioritizing funds.
Moonlight
I'm Alan Handelman, Vice President of Conifer Realty. I'll give you a brief overview about Conifer, what we just typically do, and what we're doing in Long Island. We have a 4-state footprint, and we own and manage about 15,000 units. Sure. In Long Island, we've been working in Long Island for about 15 years. In that time period, we've developed and have in the pipeline about 1,200 units of housing. This is an example of a project, one of our first projects in East Patchogue, which is more typical of what we do throughout our 4-state footprint, which is a typical suburban senior type project. This is working on its own. Recently, we completed a project in Quorum, which is the redevelopment of the UA Cinema project. How do I stop this? I'll get this over. I'll talk faster. That's fine, I'll just. Well, this is what was done in Rochester, downtown in the background. It was a redevelopment of a former Section 8 development. We created.
Hierarchy of need for electric utilities. Provide basic service. There is a successful utility where they're benchmarking the service quality. They're doing
Now I think we're out of the show.
good energy efficiency, clean energy programs. They're doing innovative things with rain containment options.
Okay.
This
is wind farm.
Things like Jones Beach. So, where we are. This is where we were.
Created some commercial space on the ground floor. It was 176 units, very, very successful. The commercial really didn't work. It's not what the community was looking for, but it created a walkable community with public spaces.
And so one final thought for you, and well, two thoughts. Number one, if you want to read all more about what we
In Rochester, New York.
budget's out and it describes that, we will set on our website.
And we've also done some mixed-use downtown development in the city of Rochester. This is an example of a former automobile dealership.
Long Island grid. There's just all this energy right here. And New York has addressed this all with 1,600 megawatts of.
Right. In Long Island, I've been working for about 10 years. What's been successful
Jersey is a 35.
is working with.
Connecticut and Rhode Island have built. Maryland has.
I apologize.
And there's, and we've.
This is a project we're working on Copeg. We're working with the town of Babylon on rezoning of the area of downtown. Copeg is right across from the train station. We have our regional office here in one of the lower level units. It's been very successful, rented up very quickly.
Goals for clean energy. Also, we're going to be a key partner.
All right, this is a recently completed project in downtown Riverhead. It's 45 units. It has an artist preference, recently completed. We just had a ribbon cutting. One of the things that we are always asked is, the renderings look very good, but what is the real product? What does the real product look like?
Morning,
So
everybody.
this is a rendering.
Let's try that one more time. I'm in the energy business. Good morning, everybody.
That's what the real product
All right, we've got to be a
looks
little
like.
louder than next door, right?
We're working with South
I'm gonna go back to the
Coco.
sometimes before you stop, so it's not much. My name tag says PSC&G, but I actually work for National Grid. I have 30 years in the business, and I'm open to negotiation after next year when I'm fired. So if you guys want to work out a deal,
This is a prospective project in Port Jefferson, right across from the train station. We're working right now with the village and submitting an application to the HCR for funding. One of the key things for what we do is affordable housing. That's our core business. The primary engine for affordable housing is the low-income housing tax credit. Recently, and that's competitively funded from the state of New York. Recently, there have been other tools added to the toolbox, which include community investment funds, which provides funding for commercial spaces on the lower floors, as well as hitting other income targets, going up to 90% of area median income and up to 120% of area median income. We're very fortunate. In order to do what we do, we need to do work with local municipalities, civic groups. We've been working with the CDC of Long Island as a local partner. As we're based in Rochester, it's important to have local participation. We used to come to governments and sort of sheepishly say, this is what we're looking to do, we want to build affordable housing, and try to negotiate it and explain to them the benefits. At this point, we're finding that governments and communities are coming to us and saying, we want to build affordable housing in our community. We know that you've got a good track record, how can you help us? So that's been a significant sea change. And we're finding that we're embraced rather than showed the door. So, thank you. Happy to answer any questions.
You know, Brooklyn, I wanted to talk really quick about the investment. We've invested $3 billion infrastructure. And some of these projects I want to just touch on quick. This pipe here that you see here, this comes in from Transco, and it comes into Brooklyn.
All right, good morning, everyone. Nick Halstead from Bill Group Residential. I'm going to talk to you today about Modera Metro Mineola, which is going to be our fourth major transit-oriented development project in Nassau County on Long Island. To give you a little bit of context, this is where we are in the world of downtown Mineola. We have Modera Mineola, which is our first major Mineola project towards the bottom right, directly across from the Nassau County Courthouse. The Mineola Long Island Railroad, Winthrop Hospital is a great employment driver. You've got the downtown restaurants and bars that are constantly improving with the foot traffic of new residents in downtown. The star on the upper corner is where our new project is. The Modera Mineola Muse was actually the former name for the project. We are rebranding it as Modera Metro Mineola. And we'll go forward with some additional images for the property context. So this is actually a two-building format. We were able to acquire almost 1 acre parcels on opposite sides of Searing Avenue. This is about a 7-minute walk to the train station. So while it is a little bit tucked away from the core of the downtown, providing kind of a boutique, separate feel, it's easily walkable to all of the amenities of downtown. This is the site plan that we put together. Basically, there's multiple courtyards. You can see in the top plan, there's single-loaded corridors along the railroad side. That's basically for sound attenuation because there is the Oyster Bay diesel branch that rolls by. We've done design considerations for upgraded STC windows to minimize that, as well as, again, the single-loaded corridor as a design feature. The south building is going to be our pool courtyard. The bottom part of that was, again, listening to community response in that they didn't want a 4-story format to be on that bottom side of the building because there are adjacent ball fields. They were worried about kind of shadows and just kind of looming impact. So we responded to community input. Also has a nice benefit that there's going to be more sunlight into our courtyard. This is just a quick rendering of the facade. And basically got multiple garage levels. All parking is going to be off-street. 4 levels of residential above. And again, this is the south building where it tapers back to 3 stories. This is an aerial perspective that kind of just lends more of a visual of what we're talking about here. The north building on the left and the south building to the right. Again, you can clearly see the tapered density off either side. The buildings oppose each other, slightly offset, but they're designed to function as one community. You've got kind of a raised crosswalk that would kind of tie the buildings together. Residents of one building will be allowed to use the amenities of the other. Designed to be one cohesive community. So this is kind of the street level perspective as you enter the property. It is a dead-end street going into the Oyster Bay Branch Railroad, so it does provide kind of that secluded feel to it. And as I mentioned, that was just a 7 to 8 minute walk to downtown Mineola.
And you're going to see those numbers go up 100 million in just the beginning.
And we want to say that this is not just a pie in the sky proposal. This is actually last month's aerial construction photo. So this is what's happening in reality. The north side of the building is going to come online a little bit after the south. There was some significant demolition work that had to be done on the north side, so it's a little bit behind by design. That roof is fully enclosed now, which is perfect timing for us in anticipation of weather, snow for the winter. We are fully enclosed. The south building will come online for leasing in April, with the north building in May. So this is a very real project, a very, very near-term project for us, and we're going to be opening pre-leasing probably about February. Just another vantage point, just kind of flipping the orientation, seeing the adjacencies of the ball fields, which is why we taper the density now. That's, those are the renderings and images. Happy to answer any questions.
We show women in non-traditional roles, kind of spark their interest in getting success and engineering.
I have a PowerPoint, but I'm not going to even attempt it. So just so you know a little bit more about us, we're, like I said before, family business. We have a little over 1 million square feet of commercial real estate, mostly on Long Island and the boroughs, shopping centers, office buildings, and while we're here today, multifamily projects as well. Our first project was actually 2001, a 52,000 square foot mixed-use building in Lower Port Jefferson. It was a former car dealership, which we converted to ground floor retail with the CVS anchor and some other retail spaces, along with 30 apartments above. The reason I just wanted to bring that one up is also the first Smart Growth Award winner, which was 2002. We didn't even know what smart growth was at that point. I met my father and our architect and said, we won some award, and he sent the architect. He said, you go pick it up. We didn't know what it was, but obviously we're all familiar with where things are going and how far along we've come. But that project, you know, I do live in the area, and we're long-term holders, so we're very close to our properties and our tenants. And one thing people forget, how important these apartments are. Many of our tenants are not only starting families, they're meeting a husband or wife in the area, they're then starting a family in the apartment, and then they're moving into the community where they're buying a townhouse, a condo, or a home. There is a reason we're doing all this. These people aren't just here, they're not transient. Yeah, some people are only staying for a few years and then moving on to other areas of the country. But it's really nice to see a lot of these people stay in the community and really buy into everything that we're doing. The second project that I'll quickly discuss, we opened 2 years ago, and that was in Uptown Port Jefferson, which is a blighted area. It is a 74-unit complex. We broke up into 2 phases. We were a little concerned, being the first one in the ground in Upper Port Jefferson, on how the leasing was going to go. In the end, we were disappointed we didn't do the project all at once. We pre-leased both phases within 60 days of opening up the leasing office. And we have a constant waiting list for both of these properties. A big generator of our leasing activity is our how close we are to the Port Jefferson train station and Stony Brook University. Stony Brook University is a huge generator of leasing for the general area of Port Jefferson, Setauket, Stony Brook. And we've been feeding off that, and this latest project, we cater towards that. We cater towards these med students and grad students and try to incorporate as many of the amenities that we feel that they would enjoy. Barbecues, fire pits, screening room, 2 gyms, private parking, and we have a third project now in the pipeline, also in Port Jefferson, Lower Port Jefferson again, sandwiched between our office building and that original TOD project, which is called the Barnum House. The second project is currently a carpet store in Port Jefferson that we are planning to convert into 46 rental units along with a retail component. Will feature a rooftop terrace, as well as a courtyard, covered parking, all the amenities everyone is looking for these days. We're excited about this. We have a couple of projects that we're working on, but nothing really to talk about this time. So that's all. Thank you.
Definitely an honor to be on a panel. I thank everybody for filling the room. It's really heartwarming. My construction business just had its 40th anniversary, which is a big accomplishment. We're certainly proud of it. More importantly, it's an impeccable record of 40 years. It happens from a passion, and that same passion goes into developing, which is what we've been trying to do more and more of.
Someday I want to be like Renaissance. And it went along really well. We're not doing enough
volume you have, and that's what we're working toward. In any event, we're very proud of what we've done.
And then the demand response stuff.
Hurricane Sandy came, there was a tremendous amount of houses that need to be elevated, and we saw the need more than really wanting it as a business, and we elevated over 800 houses, again, impeccable record, again, much harder to do than it sounds.
And that is my
Going
story.
to
Did
the
it make sense?
downtowns, we, as a construction company, have done a lot of downtowns.
Thank you
Starting
for your
with
time.
Westbury. At the turn of the century, which everybody wonders where 18 years went, and it boggles my mind, but it was a whole different world. I bought the corner of Post and Union in Westbury, all piping work, and everybody thought it was nuts. With a train there, it was like the worst thing about this thing was the train, which the old saying is the best thing about this was the train. I felt like I was a little ahead of what everyone's doing now, but in any event, it was a very successful project. I actually sold out on it because I didn't believe it at that time. So it shows you 18 years later, it's now actually my life. So that was, let's call it 2000, now we fast forward. We've done the entire downtown of Westbury, the facades, the theaters, and everything. We're very proud of that. We watched that town turn around. After that, or similar time, in Farmingdale, we developed 60 units, which I appreciate Anthony mentioned. Very proud of that. Again, not only with quality, passion, but it really worked out well. We rented it in about 3.5 months, 60 units, and actually have a waiting list.
Which is now only about 20
Two
years
others
left.
to mention,
So
quick,
what
patch
is the
job.
reduction in greenhouse gases?
We all remember when that was a
50%
mess,
all
we were
energy,
very
all electric
instrumental
energy
in
will be
bringing that
renewable.
back. I'm
And
not going to go into
600
detail
trillion
because it wasn't a
BTUs
TOD, but we were very
That
instrumental.
number is
As we were at
natural
Hempstead.
gas, oil,
Hempstead still
coal,
struggles, but anyone who's
BTUs.
around as long
If you
as
look
I
at
have,
the
remember when
portion of
Hempstead
that,
was all
I
boarded.
believe the number is
Every
185
building
trillion
was boarded
BTUs,
up,
which
and
is
it's
hard to
doing
get a
very
sense
good
of
compared to
what that
when we
means
started.
anyway.
Unfortunately, I couldn't do what my hope was, but it still came a long way. It's not the Hempstead of
Achieve the renewable energy target, which is the 50%.
Going on to the
30.
national, we're here talking about the projects that are TOD. I think we have one of the most exciting projects. I have a couple of renderings I'll pass around. H2M Architects did the drawings, Cameron did the engineering, very close to doing it. 115 units in Amityville, right at the train station. We have, it took 3 years to get the zoning changed to 48 per acre. Involved a lot of time with the village, who were excellent, and really, it was a very, very long process, but they were wonderful to work with. It came with some incentives, which is fine, that's how the world goes around, we gladly gave back incentives. And a couple of the good points of it, when this is built, right at the train, it literally is only 50 feet from the lobby of this new building to being under the trestles. You don't even need a raincoat if you run fast. And then you run right up to the train. So we're very excited about this TOD project. Again, if anyone wants to see the drawings, they will clearly have the quality that Carroll Construction does. I can't help it, even my partners say, does it have to be that nice? We only build good or we don't build. Thank you very much for your time.
At this point, we'd like to open up to any questions that anyone has.
To reduce the demand on those peak days in those low pockets. So we have what we call non-wire solutions, and then we want to have state funding to achieve the goal of New York City, 3,000 megawatts in the next 10 years. And then there'll be state
Well,
funding.
that's the primary engine for what we do. They're competitive tax credits that are awarded by New York State Homes and Community
$220 million in
Development.
customer incentives.
There's 2 sections, one's a 9%, and that's an annual funding round with applications that do it in 2 weeks, so I'm not sure why I'm here. HFA uses 4% tax credits, which are associated with tax exempt bonds. So those are sort of the key kernels of what how it's financed, competitive. There are a number of barriers to entry. Some of what we do is counterintuitive.
There's also another couple hundred megawatts of large
We built this, we end up with the developer fee up front. The goal is to maintain these projects as affordable over the long term. So whereas some of the other developers here look to increase in value as rents go up, we don't do that. So it's a little bit different. So there's some barriers to entry that we need to have a very good track record with tax credit investors and the state. So that's one of the things that works in our advantage in the Long Island market. There's not been that many competitors because of the barriers to entry, because of some of the NIMBYism associated with affordable housing. As well as you all know, Long Island is a very challenging business environment. It's sort of like a game of whack-a-mole where you're playing and you think you hit the ball and it pops up over there, and you never even thought that was going to be a problem. But then it's a problem just before you close. We also look to government
This is 2014, the year that
funding from supplemental affordable housing programs.
And there was some growth
And now some of the
year.
local towns actually have
2011, 2012, as the cost of solar panels came down, and all of the contractors to Long Island, there are numerous reputable solar contractors. It became more popular, but it was still very expensive. So there were about 6,000, maybe 7,000 homes with solar panels on the roof. And between 2014 and 2018, we grew from 7,000 to 43,000. And we're continuing to grow at about 5 to 7,000 new homes per year. Homes and businesses is the vast majority of homes. So about 7,000 new solar installation customers are being added.
It's a great question. So we take a little bit of a different approach. A lot of the townships have actual LEED requirements, like the town of Huntington has LEED requirements in their existing buildings already. And so it's two parts. One, on the building side of the equation, most municipalities have implemented a lot of these requirements already. So for us to come in from a zoning perspective, we don't actually have to do that because it's already in place. But we do take a little bit of a different approach where in a lot of the zoning codes we write, we require LEED and D, which is a little different. So that's called LEED for neighborhood design. And LEED for neighborhood design basically focuses on what the panels, walkability, distance to not only transit, but to bikes or buses. It focuses on how close you are to convenience-based stores and basically encourages development to be walkable at the end of the day. Because the irony of it is that when LEED certification was created, I'm sure there are architects probably in the room that could talk to this better than I can, but one of the challenges is that you build a LEED platinum building, but if you build it in the middle of nowhere where every single employee has to drive there, you're not really accomplishing from an environmental perspective what you really want to accomplish. Of course, it's better than building an energy inefficient building in the middle of nowhere. However, we feel that from a TOD perspective, you can do a lot more for the environment by creating a walkable environment whereby people only have to own one car, or maybe no cars, right? Here on Long Island, we're used to a tradition of owning 2 to 3 cars per day, right? So from that perspective, the encouragement of walkability and the encouragement of transit use and being able to shop and recycle the dollars in the local economy is huge. But challenges with creating super energy efficient buildings, we've looked at things like geothermal and all sorts of techniques, and unfortunately some of the numbers for the construction costs are not necessarily there yet. Yes, the payback gets there after a certain period of time, but when you look at the IRR and the yield thresholds that you need to achieve from an equity and a debt perspective, it's still a little challenging to implement some of those techniques.
Along with the major generators that we have. Just a couple of slides. Slide 8. This just shows you what we think the future homes are going to look like. You'll have an electric vehicle in your garage, smart appliances that can communicate with your smartphone, control usage, time of use pricing, variable pricing, so you'll save costs basically by using things off peak at nighttime and early morning hours. Solar on the roof, electric vehicle, garage battery storage, which will give you resiliency during storms. Just a pictorial view of what we think. Two-way flow of energy. The old way was one way, new way will have two-way flow of energy.
I cannot get a seat on a train unless I go to the
I'm
last
not going to go
car.
into all these details. We have smart meter deployment. Smart meters basically give us new capabilities, as Tom already covered. If the power's out, we'll know it right away.
I live 2 blocks from
And
Main Street.
then also as a
There are
consumer, if any of you
sewage
have a
issues.
smart meter in your home
There
right
are
now, and I
water
have one,
issues.
I can go on and I
There
can see
are
last night
school
and yesterday, every 15 minutes, I can see how much energy I use.
schools,
And
and
it gives you
who's paying for
understand
that?
how and when you're
The
using
people
energy.
who live
By
there
doing that,
now,
it helps you save
who are
energy.
paying the taxes
All
now,
the time that
because
you use the energy.
our taxes
Next slide.
have not go back
And
on
then
down.
lastly,
You're taking down
Board of
trees.
Distributed Energy Resources.
Traffic on
Super
Long
Savers is in
Island,
North
the
Belmore right now.
Western
We're basically
corridor,
using all of
there's a
our
lot of
tools
traffic
that we have available to us to help customers save energy.
plants
And we're putting a
farming there.
focused effort
Both
in the
of
North
them
Belmore
were
area.
discontinued.
Because
One
if we
was
don't
next
do
to
that,
the-
it would
to
be a
the
need to upgrade our
firehouse,
substation.
and one was a
So
huge
attending
one
this
on
non-wire
110 by
solution
Airport
right now, we call it
Plaza.
Super
That was
Savers. So
gonna
if
bring
you happen to live in
apartment
North
buildings
Belmore, you're probably getting a lot of
thousands
communication
of people.
from PSC to
It's
the
not
line
really
about
what
that
Long
program.
Island needs
registration of electric vehicles, incentives for charging, marketing prices for electric charging. We're going to begin deploying a program that will give you incentives to put battery storage in your home, particularly if you have solar.
And you also have climate change.
And then we're going
You
to do
have
some
weather.
additional
You
utility
have
scale.
people on the South Shore that you might have to
Thank you very much.
move
We'll take
away
questions
from. On Long Island, if you have to evacuate them now. And now look at all these people that you're bringing in. You are bringing in a lot more people that you're going to have to on all these high rises and you're bringing in Queens without the public transportation that we have.
I think you've touched upon every issue that these developers have had to address throughout the process. And I guess I would want to just say regarding traffic, these developments are particularly designed to reduce impact on traffic by creating walkable developments where you don't have people that have cars, that they're walking to the train station, going to the city to their jobs, coming back. So this really alleviates the traffic problems on the surrounding roadways. If somebody else wants to address that further, we can do that. In terms of the real estate taxes, while these developments do get some tax assistance, and without that assistance, they really can't thrive. They do pay the taxes, and it's not as if they don't pay them fully. They do. It's just phased in over time. That's what the IDA financing is about for these projects. So again, these are impacts that are addressed and looked at on a case-by-case basis, but overall, the impact on traffic, parking, those really are minimal. That's what these projects are designed to do, to alleviate those impacts. If anyone else wants to chime in on that.
Yeah, I just wanted not to be redundant. You said the TOD, which is this about, naturally you're right at the train. But more importantly, I addressed a few downtowns that we saw go from boarded up to great downtowns. Amityville will be next because of our project, without a question. So the people aren't driving as much. They're absolutely taking the trains.
Well, I was just going to comment on that because I know in Lindbergh, that was a big concern of all the people there. And that was, it wasn't just height, it was also traffic coming down. I don't know your name, but you raised a good point about public infrastructure. There isn't the same infrastructure and transportation as there is in New York City. So I'm just wondering, in terms of, as you as developers, what can you do to encourage public transportation? I think that's probably one of the biggest concerns. The folks who are buying into these, or renting at these developments, it's not as though they don't own cars. They do own cars because there's no other way to get outside of their own little downtown without a car. Whereas in New York City, you can go to a bus, you can go to the subway. We don't have that infrastructure. So I think that's one of the big concerns is traffic that I hear over and over again. How can you developers encourage
So here's the thing. We have two problems here on Long Island: traffic and taxes. Right? So number one, we need to grow. Otherwise, the tax problem will exacerbate itself over and over and over again, and we can't cure that. So we need to grow, but we need to grow smart. Right? We don't want to just do things haphazardly. Contrary to the one comment, these developments don't cut down any trees. We're raising old blighted warehouses and underutilized parking lots and the like around transit hubs. Strategic development is what needs to happen. Now, with regards to traffic, it's there. It's there. It's not going away. So we can't just turn off the lights and roll up the streets and call it a day. What we need to do is develop in an environment that encourages people not to use their vehicles. We can't say they are or are not ever going to use their car. But we need to encourage them to not use the car. And let me tell you a little statistic here. What is the worst time to drive by the Farmingdale train station? Between 7 and 9 in the morning and between 5 and 7 at night. Because that's when it's a mad dash to get to the train. You can almost get into a roll-around brawl getting to the train every day. Guess what? Our residents don't have to drive to the train. They're there already. Here's what our residents do in the morning. They leave 1 minute early or 3 minutes early to grab a cup of coffee to hit the train. And guess what else? On the weekends and at night, when you're in the downtown, our residents don't have to drive and park and strain the municipal parking lots, which are already strained. They're there already. That's the spirit of TOD. The spirit of it is we're going to put the people in the downtown. we're going to put them at the train. We can't say they're not going to have a car. This is Long Island. They're going to drive to grandma's or whatever they're going to do. But we're going to encourage them not to, and we're going to put them in an environment where they can go downtown, shop and dine, they can get on a train, and they don't have to drive to achieve that.
But there are some things that you could do to encourage that the tenants that come into your facilities will take the train. So potentially you could unbundle the cost of parking so that parking is something they pay for separately, not included in the rent, which discourages people from having a car, and the people that are going to take the train then will be extra attracted to live there because they didn't plan to have a car as it was. You could have a car share membership option. Farmingdale has that, where there's a zip car there. So that also encourages people. I don't have to have a car when I needed to go to grandma's or whatever. I could just rent my car right there. I don't have to have my car. You could, if you have an integrated use with commercial properties, you can encourage or mandate even that the companies offer their employees the pre-tax transit benefit, which is a way that reduces the cost of transit. And there are communities around the country that are doing this as part of the planning process up front, where the development has these kind of things built into getting your density bonuses or like. And it's not that it forces people to, like you said, you can't force them to use the car, but if you can encourage that the people that are going to live there are transit-oriented people, then it'll live up to its promise. Because right now there's not much rental properties at all on Long Island, so you could end up with people just liking the properties because it's a rented property, and they still plan to drive everywhere, drive to work and whatever. So ideally you'd want a big percentage of your people to be transit people.
Well, I couldn't agree with that more, and I can't speak on behalf of my colleagues, but I'm proud of the fact that we brought the first zip car location to Long Island in Farmingdale, the first one. So we very much embrace in our communities, I'm sure my colleagues do as well, but we embrace in our communities everything you just said. And again, it's self-evident by the fact that Zipcar is in Long Island, it's in Farmingdale, the first location that they opened there, and we were able to demonstrate exactly what you're saying to them to encourage them to come in and open it up. And if you drive by Farmingdale, you never see the Zipcars there, so that speaks to the success of that. So I agree.
Yeah, and to your point, Mill Creek, all of our developments, we do unbundle the cost of parking. It's not a mandate in any way. The mandate to build the parking is actually way more onerous from the municipality perspective than we could actually even charge for. So that's something we absolutely do, is unbundle the parking. The second thing is we employ technologies like transit screens, which are basically real-time, digital displays that are in the lobby. And so basically we have like a coffee shop kind of built into our lobby for our residents. Grab a cup of coffee, get a real-time Long Island Railroad. If it's 20 minutes late, you sit on the couch in the club room until your train's ready and you go. So you're not waiting out in the rain, you're not waiting out in the cold. So it's just another way to encourage transit. You've got real-time information up to the minute.
Yeah, and I think the other thing to do is that some of the parking requirements, the municipal parking requirements, need to be scaled back. Once they're scaled back, the developers will tend to build less parking, and residents will accommodate that. I think we're fighting City Hall a lot of times.
I just want to mention, most of us, to go to the corner deli, take the car, it was just the way we used to think. People don't think that way as much, and I'll tell you why. I was very concerned building our first development with that it might not be enough parking. We charged the extra for the spot, held on for the ride. Half the lot is empty. A lot of the people do not even want a car. They just think differently than I always did. I personally own 20 cars. Anybody knows me, I'm my high school car. But they just think differently today. People just, I blind, and I'm talking from experience. People do not want to drive.
I'm Joel Lipsky. I work with some of you. I hope this question is okay. We're still friends after the same. Well, my question is, I think everything that you're doing as developers, for me and my brother being millennials, I think it's very, very important that what you guys are doing actually leads what you guys are doing as developers. Do you really think, my question is, do you think that you are targeting millennials, or is that part of the equation? And I'm just looking at Patchogue a little bit and their rental rates, and and using that as like just like the base, when I see these, the rental prices at the end of the construction, do you think that is like a millennial target range that you're looking for? I understand that you guys are developers, and there's tremendous cost up front that you guys are just laying down, in some cases millions of dollars before you even see a return. And I respect that. Do you think that the downtown developments are looking at the millennial bracket?
I find a lot of empty nesters. Divorce is so prevalent today. It's like 60% divorces. 60% marriages end in divorce, so we're getting a lot of divorced people. And I'm just amazed how people are so happy to walk to downtown and get on a train and not have to drive. Maybe because the traffic is so bad, nobody's denying that. But whatever it is, there's definitely a different way of thinking. Then if you add Uber, and all the rest, that people do walk more, they're starting to become like the city. They know a little walk to the store is not a bad thing, it's actually a good thing. People, in my experience, are changing the way they play around.
I think a lot of what we do in the affordable housing world is that we're meeting the needs of millennials. A lot of what we do starts meeting the needs of people at the beginning and end of their economic lifestyle. And I think that's what's helped governments and neighborhoods and civics to really start embracing affordable housing, because they know they've got children or they've got an aunt and uncle who needs affordable housing. That's part of the change.
Yeah, I'd like to just add to that, and it goes to what Andy's saying, where the climate has shifted, right? Even myself, when you got out of high school or college, push, get your house, buy that house, get in right away. That's going to be your biggest asset, etc. Studies show now it's not your biggest asset, your biggest liability. And here's the thing. So if you look at these numbers are adjusted. In 1970, our millennials, which is 25 to 34-year-olds, were making in adjusted numbers over 20% less than they're making today. But guess what? A house on Long Island costs over 150% more. For a millennial to buy a house, assuming they could service their college debt, assuming they could rally the six-figure down payment, they'll have to deploy 77% of their income to be able to have a house. Guys, how do you do that? How do we do that? So that's why you hear the brain drain, where we're spending all this money on our taxes, spoke about taxes, to educate our next generation, and they're leaving. Our investment's being capitalized on elsewhere. So how do you do it? You do it by what we're doing here. And the reason why I think one of the points you were going to is, well, how can millennials maybe afford it? That might be part of your question. Well, here's how. And I think Mill Creek is comparable to the way we do it. You're in the door for $500, right? Not 3-month security, not $100,000 down payment. $500, you're in the door on most of our developments. A lot of times during lease up, we'll give you the first month free to welcome you. You get your gym membership, you get your train parking, you're in the downtown. So when you annualize what our rents are, factoring all that in, it's a different perspective.
I'm just going to add to what you're saying. I mean, just in addition to that is if you only need to own one car, right? The average car costs you $10,000 a year, right? So that could be healthcare for you or subsidize your rent. I think one of the other things that we encourage in our developments is smaller unit sizes from a millennial perspective, right? So there is affordable housing that Alan and his group and other affordable housing developers are doing a great job of providing. But the challenge with affordable housing is that you have an income restriction to where you can actually rent the unit, right? So one of the other
what is the income restriction? What are the limits?
It's different for everything. So there's a range. So maybe it's for a certain tax credit, it might be 60 to 90% of area median income, right? So, but it's different for different programs that Alan's team gets. But one of the other ways is affordability by design. If you can design a well laid out open floor plan unit that is smaller, then you can charge less, right? Because ultimately it's a math game, right? It costs all these guys and us a certain amount per square foot to build the unit. You have to spend a certain amount in operating expenses. So those numbers are what they are, and if you can charge the same nominal rent but build less square footage, there is a play there that you can actually provide a more affordable rent by design perspective and provide what people actually want. Because if you built an apartment unit back in 1985, you built it very differently than you build it today, right? It was not an open floor plan. It might have been a galley kitchen. It didn't feel the same as it does today. So from an architectural perspective, you can actually still serve the desires from the market and provide more affordability.
You described affordable housing, and we're going to have multiple discussions about that today. What do you do? In my experience, affordable housing now with the millennials also includes where millennials may stay in your apartment for 20 or 30 years. They may not want to buy a house. They may like that lifestyle downtown. And what do you do? I think it's two challenges. One from an energy standpoint and another from a sustainability or maintenance standpoint. What do you do to keep those rates affordable so these people can actually age in place and live in these things, live in the apartments for the future? How do you see moving forward what you have to do to kind of keep things affordable?
You don't have to do anything. In Long Island, you've got to, if they're already there, you've got to do everything.
One, we benefit from low market rate financing and equity, so we don't have the same level of debt service. We're restricted in terms of when we can institute rent increases. We have to go back to the state and request them and demonstrate why they're required. And that's the public policy of what we do, is to build, own, and maintain housing as affordable. One of the challenges that we're finding here in Long Island at this point, as the pendulum swings, some of the municipalities are instituting affordability in perpetuity, which creates some challenges, mostly on the financing side, because the banks and lenders and state they're not used to that. Frequently need to refinance after a period of time and do capital improvements, and having that kind of requirement is not something that anyone's used to. I think that we're going to have to get used to it because that's where it's headed. Yeah, and then in regard to all of new ground-up development on Long Island, payment in lieu of tax agreements are put in place to kick off the groundbreaking of these developments, and they typically involve an affordable component, whether that's 10% or 20% of the units, whether it's 60% or 80% of AMI. But those restrictions on income are based on the duration of the pilot term. So that is kind of there's income restrictions built into the policy. And then just from an overall market supply and demand perspective, the more of these well strategically located developments that we can create to increase the supply, that does also put a leveling pressure on rents.
Skip over all these steps. Turns out we can't. It turns out that it is.
You couldn't see back here.
So,
I'm a wellness expert, okay? I've been studying for the last, I don't know how many years, about electromagnetic frequencies. And I get more concerned when there's condensed housing, because there's even more issues with Wi-Fi when you start adding up every single person having their own router. Did you guys ever think about that, or you were on any team with it, or? Because there are ways to protect and to build with that in mind. But you all look like you don't have any clue.
I have to tell you, I attended a civic meeting in Huntington, South Huntington Library a couple years ago when we started our project, where they were talking about the potential effects of to your brain waves, of Wi-Fi and things like that. I don't know a whole ton about that particular aspect, but I will tell you one of the things that's up your alley, and I think would address some of that, is that there are what's called well building standards that are coming out right now. So similar to what was mentioned with LEED, right now there are a lot of companies out there that have started for-profit and non-for-profit well building standards. So just like you'd apply for LEED certification, you'd apply for well building standard certification, where they look at things like that, air quality, temperature, all water, all that type of stuff. And you can get actual, financing by getting to certain credit levels. Obviously, it's good for your consumer and marketing perspective. So there's just, with the growth of the wellness industry, I think you're going to see a lot of emphasis on that, where, when you put the LEED Platinum plaque on the building, you felt like you could rent better with that on the building. You might be seeing well-building standards that actually improve people's, health and wellness.
One more. I think we have time for one more quick question.
Yeah, hi, I'm Tom Savino. I was actually the administrator of Westbury Village when Andy bought that property into Piping Rock. And then I formed my own company and I helped Farmingdale with their downtown facade improvements. I'm raising this comment because of, as my question goes to incentive and what the incentive is used for. It's great from my perspective to hear these problems now. I remember when back then in 2000, we talked about parking and traffic and what these developments are going to do. And I remember the mayor saying, Tom, from Old Country Road, you can shoot an arrow down down Post Avenue and you'll reach Jericho Turnpike before it's anything. We don't have a parking problem, we don't have a traffic problem. We need to address those for the future, but let's address what we do have. And what we did have was a downtrodden downtown. Farmingdale had many vacancies because its downtown was also downtrodden. What we did is we invested in the local business owners and the community as well as the developments that came in. And I think there is that symbiotic relationship where that investment helps the developers and that as those developers help that investment. Westbury went from worst to first, Farmingdale went from worst to first. My company is now hiring in Mineola. So Mineola is going to become first too. I'd like to see some of these incentives, and maybe you could discuss the kinds of incentives that municipalities ask for. Rather than just saying, give me $1 million, can these incentives be geared towards particular community development funding needs? The head of the community development of Nassau County, Kevin Green, is here. We use federal funds to help business owners, but I'd like to see some of these incentives. Maybe you could work it out with the municipalities, and saying we'll give you money to go towards your local shops so they can help their businesses while they help ours, and we help theirs in retrospect. Your comments on incentives?
Is during new construction. So we do have generous incentives for geothermal, and with the
I
incentives.
rushed through my project a little bit only because I didn't want to grandstand, but I used the word incentives and then moved right along. The incentives are just that, streetscapes, expertise, the Amityville. You can see a tremendous difference when we do these projects in Amityville. And I mentioned the towns already, I was actively involved in the way they came back. We did them together. We did Farmingdale together, we did Patchogue, we tried in Hempstead. Mineola's a no-brainer. Watch Amityville in a year and a half. So the incentives do include giving back to the downtown.
Yeah, we, for Uptown Port Jefferson, we did a joint project to create a new public parking area between the county, village government, and the MTA. We created 58 spaces for public to use. And then this spring, the last phase of that project, we'll be upgrading the entire community park that's adjacent to our property. So things like that do benefit the entire community.
The last point for our two projects in Mineola as examples. Mineola has a development incentive bonus district where the density that we're ultimately able to achieve in the approvals process, incentive payments were in tandem with that. And while they're not specifically earmarked for any one particular public benefit, it's up to the village trustees and the local constituents to decide best how to use that money. We're happy to contribute it, happy to be part of the community, but we don't necessarily want to dictate what improvements need to be made. That's for the village and the constituents to take care of.
Yeah, just real quick, they got nothing on us, we still got them. All right, listen, just real quick, because there was a comment made about that. Ourselves as well, in addition to capital improvement projects, streetscapes and the like, every one of our projects had a payment to the village, a cash payment. Look, we're not the elected officials. We can't speak on what they deploy that towards. All we can do is contribute and help. There was a comment about taxes. Our project in Farmingdale, in its current state, was generating $200,000 a year in taxes. We opened the last phase in 2015, and today it's over $800,000 a year in taxes. Lynbrook is generating $25,000 a year in taxes. The day we open the door, it'll be over $500,000, 2,000% swelling. That's all we can do. We're not the elected officials. We can't speak on how they deploy the funds, but we do our part, not just by bolstering the tax base and swelling it, but by contributing with capital improvements and cash payments. I mean, I
The only thing I can add to that is we, as I mentioned quickly, we put a community benefits agreement in place in most of our communities. So in the town of Huntington, for our Huntington Station project, every developer who comes in has to pay $1,000 per unit, and it's $1.50 per commercial square foot into a fund. There's a community benefits committee that was formed and selected, and then local organizations can actually apply for grant dollars from that pool of money. And then ultimately it's the municipal government's decision at the recommendation of the Community Benefits Board as to what that money gets deployed to. Some of our other communities, like in Riverside, we required that anybody who opted into the overlay district pay and tie into a new sewer treatment plant. So that's actually going to create sewers for Riverside and Southampton. So, you know, it's a $60 million project that we're going to fund through the new development, and we're going to be tying in 500 trailers that are currently using old septic systems and leaching nitrogen into the estuaries. So we're going to create new wetlands, we're going to create a new sewer system, we're going to tie in existing homes, and all that comes within the zoning code that we passed.
Okay, that concludes our workshop. Thank you, everyone.